In 1991, 8 people locked themselves inside a glass dome in the Arizona desert. 4 men, 4 women. Inside, they had their own ocean, their own rainforest, a farm, a swamp, a desert, 7 tiny worlds sealed under 3 acres of glass. The door was shut behind them and sealed to the outside air. No food would come in, no oxygen would come in. Whatever they needed to stay alive, they would have to grow, breathe, and recycle themselves. The plan was to stay for 2 years. They came out starving, gasping for air, and split into 2 groups that had stopped speaking to each other. Nothing inside had attacked them, no predators, no disease, no disaster. They had designed every inch of that world to keep them alive. It still almost killed them. This is Biosphere 2, the most expensive attempt in history to prove that humans could build their own Earth. It cost more than $150 million, and it failed in a way nobody saw coming. The name was a quiet kind of arrogant. Biosphere 1 was the planet you're standing on. Biosphere 2 was the copy, a second Earth, built by hand. A Texas billionaire named Ed Bass put up the money. Engineers spent years sealing 3 acres of desert under a lattice of glass and steel so airtight it leaked less in a day than a spacecraft. Inside, they built 7 worlds, a rainforest with a real waterfall, a million-liter ocean with a living coral reef, a mangrove swamp, a savanna, a fog desert, a farm, and living quarters for 8 people. They filled it with around 3,000 species of plants and animals, a hand-picked slice of the living planet, shrunk to fit under glass. The idea was enormous. If humans were ever going to live on Mars, on the moon, anywhere out there, we would have to bring a working Earth with us. Biosphere 2 was the test. Could we build a world that runs itself? On September 26, 1991, the 8 crew members, they called themselves Biospherians, walked through the airlock, waved at the cameras, and sealed the door. For a few weeks, it was paradise. The first thing to go was the food. They had to grow everything they ate on a farm smaller than half an acre. No imported calories. If a crop failed, you simply ate less. Crops failed. The light through the glass was weaker than open sky. Insects they never invited multiplied and ate the harvest. Mites went through the potatoes. The crew worked the farm for hours every day and still went to bed hungry. They lost weight fast. For some of the men, close to a fifth of their body weight. They were constantly, gnawingly hungry. They dreamed about food. They planned the meals they would eat the day they got out. The team doctor, Roy Walford, happened to believe that near starvation was good for you, that a lean, nutrient-dense diet could extend human life. So, he reframed it. They weren't starving. They were the healthiest fed humans on the planet. The crew, scraping every last banana peel, did not always agree. But hunger, they could understand. What happened next, they couldn't. The air was disappearing. Slowly, quietly, the oxygen inside Biosphere 2 was draining away. When they sealed the door, the air was 20.9% oxygen. Exactly like outside. Month after month, it fell. 19%, 18, 16, and they felt it. They were exhausted. They couldn't finish sentences. A single flight of stairs left them panting. At night, some of them stopped breathing in their sleep. One described trying to add up simple numbers and watching the figures refuse to hold still. By January 1993, oxygen had dropped to 14.5%. That is the air you would breathe on a mountain 4,000 meters up. 8 people were slowly suffocating inside their perfect world, and nobody knew why. Where was the oxygen going? It took months to solve. The answer was hiding in the walls. The soil inside was rich, packed with microbes to feed the plants. Those microbes were breathing, consuming oxygen, releasing carbon dioxide. That part they had expected. The plants were supposed to turn that carbon dioxide back into oxygen and close the loop, but the carbon dioxide never reached the plants. The concrete was eating it. Tons of raw concrete in the structure were still curing, and curing concrete pulls carbon dioxide out of the air and locks it into the walls permanently. So oxygen went into the microbes, carbon came out, and before the plants could turn it back into air, the walls swallowed it. The loop was broken, and the people inside were the ones running out of breath. In the end, they did the one thing the entire experiment was built to avoid. They cracked the seal. In January 1993, they pumped pure oxygen in from the outside world. Twice. The dream of a self-sufficient Earth was over. They couldn't even keep the air breathable. And here is the part the engineers never thought to plan for. While the air thinned and the food ran short, something was happening to the 8 people themselves. They split into two groups of 4. It started as arguments about how to run the place, science versus survival, follow the mission or feed the crew. It hardened into something colder. By the end, the two halves could pass each other in the narrow corridors of the only world they had and say nothing at all. Former friends, sealed in together, refusing to speak because there was nowhere to go. You couldn't storm off. You couldn't take a walk to cool down. Every walk ended back inside the same glass box with the same 7 people you were furious at. The hunter-gatherers had it right. When they couldn't stand someone, they walked to the next camp for a few weeks and let the heat pass. Inside Biosphere 2, there was no next camp. There was only the dome. When the doors finally opened on September 26, 1993, exactly 2 years later, the 8 people who walked out were thinner, oxygen-starved, and divided into two halves that, in some cases, would never really speak again. The world's reaction was brutal. The press called it a stunt, a $150 million terrarium. Scientists lined up to mock it. The secret oxygen, the rumors of smuggled supplies, the hungry crew, the infighting. A second mission was attempted, collapsed into lawsuits within months, and Biosphere 2 became a punchline, the cleanest example anyone could find of human arrogance meeting reality. And the obvious lesson was easy. Humans can't play God. We are too clumsy, too proud, too small to build a world. But that reading misses what actually happened in there. Biosphere 2 didn't fail because the science was stupid. It failed because building a world that runs itself is so impossibly, monstrously hard that the smartest people alive, with a fortune and 3 acres of hand-built nature, could not keep 8 humans fed and breathing for 2 years. They had an ocean, a rainforest, 3,000 species, and a farm, and the oxygen still vanished. The pollinators still died. Almost every insect they needed to carry the system went extinct inside, while the cockroaches and the ants thrived. The vines strangled the rainforest, the reefs struggled, species blinked out one by one, and the people went hungry on top of the wreckage. That is not a story about how foolish the scientists were. It's a story about how good the original is, because there is a second biosphere, the first one, the one you are sitting inside right now. It does, for free, every second, everything those 8 people failed to do with $150 million. It feeds 8 billion of us. It holds the oxygen at 20.9% year after year with no one topping it up. It pollinates the crops, balances the ocean, recycles every breath you have ever taken. It has run the loop unbroken for nearly 4 billion years. And we have exactly one. There is no airlock. There is no outside crew to pump in oxygen when ours starts to fall. If we break the loop in here, nobody cracks the seal to save us. The Biospherians at least had an outside world to cheat with. We are the outside world. 8 people spent 2 years and a fortune learning that you cannot build a second Earth. Then, they walked out and rejoined the only one that works. The same one we treat like the experiment, like the rough draft, like there's a Biosphere 3 waiting if we ruin this one. There isn't. The doors on this one don't open.